What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fann of showmefootball.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. He's Michael D'Arcy of KC Sports Report, and we may have just gotten a little bit more clarity on the future of the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll talk about it right after this. Ladies and gentlemen of the Chiefs Kingdom, we got a big development earlier today that implicates the future of the Kansas City Chiefs in the state of Missouri, where they currently reside. So if you guys remember, last year there was a public vote in Jackson County that would have approved a taxpayer plan for this Arrowhead Stadium to receive funding for renovations. That did not get passed by voters in Jackson County, which opened the door to the Kansas City Chiefs potentially moving out of the state of Missouri to Kansas to build a new stadium. It has been reported before that Clark Hunt would like a dome for the Kansas City Chiefs. Nate Taylor of The Athletic reported that last week. Now, the state of Missouri is stepping in and saying not so fast to the state of Kansas, as they approved a bill earlier today. It was signed by the governor after passing through the Missouri House and Senate, a stadium funding plan that now gives the Chiefs the funds necessary if they do choose to stay in Missouri. We do know also that Mayor Quentin Lucas of Kansas City has been in discussions constantly with Chiefs leadership in order to get them to stay, and he feels like talks are in a positive direction. Now, Michael, this also implicates the Royals as well, but we're not going to talk about them too much, but I will touch on them here for a second. I fully expect still for the Kansas City Royals to probably move to a downtown stadium on the Kansas side, but what are your thoughts on that?
There's so much to this, and that's why I didn't decide to cover it on my channel yet, because honestly, there's so much information that I'm not even smart enough to fully comprehend what's going on. It's also something that has constantly changed. To give a little bit of a background, I just actually graduated from the University of Kansas, and in my final class, I actually had to write about Kansas legislature, and one of the bills that was proposed was the star bonds that actually end up expiring on June 30th in Kansas. And so the Chiefs have up until June 30th to use the proposed star bonds in Kansas to, maybe put a stadium out in the Legends. But after we got this news, that the Missouri government signed, the bill to give them more funding, I think it kind of gives us a very interesting picture of what is on the line, because I think that the Royals are in a weird stage where they don't know what's going on. I think the Chiefs are light years ahead. They kind of know what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
If the Chiefs go to Kansas, they're going to be playing in the Legends. And if the Chiefs stay in Missouri, they're going to be renovating Arrowhead Stadium. And so the Chiefs have, in my opinion, a concrete plan. The Royals do not have that plan. They don't know what they're doing at all. Josh, they just bought a plot of land out in Overland Park at the old, Sprint Center, the old Sprint campus. I don't know what they're doing. I don't even know if they know what they're doing. So to kind of take them out of this, the Royals are clueless, but the Chiefs, I think, have a very clear decision.
I like that you mentioned that, because I think if we go back to that vote that was put up in Jackson County in the last election, a lot of people were saying if the Chiefs had just went out on their own and did this, it may very well have passed. But it was the Royals pitch that kind of was all over the place. They were changing it all the way up until the final vote, or up until election day. They were changing small details, and it just made it seem like they didn't know what they were doing. And
they
so
still don't know where they're going.
No, right. And I think that had taxpayers in Jackson County a little bit concerned, like, we're not necessarily saying we won't give you the money, but we need to see a plan so that we know we're not just dumping money into something we have no idea what's going to happen. But I do want to bring up a quote from Clark Hunt, because the Chiefs did put out a statement after this bill was approved in the state of Missouri. He says, "We are grateful to the governor and the Missouri legislature for taking this significant step forward. The passing of this legislation is an important piece of the overall effort. While there's still work to be done, the legislation enables the Chiefs to continue exploring potential options to consider remaining in Missouri." Now, Michael, the wording of that kind of makes it sound like Clark Hunt's like, thanks, but hold on a second. And that doesn't surprise me because I do think Mark Donovan and Clark Hunt want a new Arrowhead Stadium. I think they want to build that stadium in Kansas, preferably, or at least that's the most financially favorable way of this to go. But that's only if, Michael, they can get those star bonds from the state of Kansas, which you just mentioned that a second ago. This is really interesting, though. And this is why I wanted to talk about this today, because when that Jackson County vote failed, everyone's like, Chiefs are going to Kansas, done deal. Even the Kansas lawmakers were like essentially sitting back and laughing, saying Missouri fumbled the ball. And then all of a sudden, there were some meetings recently about what they're going to do with those star bonds. And it seems like the state of Kansas and Kansas lawmakers are essentially split on what to do with those star bonds. Because at first, everyone was like, oh, they have these star bonds. They can just give money to the Chiefs, essentially, and it doesn't have to go to a public vote. But it does have to be approved, by the Kansas legislature, what they do with these star bonds. And technically, the use of star bonds to go towards a billionaire football stadium is not considered the correct use of the star bonds. And also, there is a chance that if they were to use these star bonds for a new stadium in Kansas, that it would take longer than expected to actually receive revenue on that stadium. And then all of a sudden, the state of Kansas is on the hook because these star bonds, while they don't need to go to a public vote, it's still taxpayer money. And if the state of Kansas uses that taxpayer money for a new stadium and all of a sudden, that money isn't getting paid back, someone's going to be on the hook. Someone's going to be in trouble. I know I just put out a lot of info there, but Michael, kind of what are your thoughts now? Because like I said, it seemed like at this point a year ago, everyone's like, well, done deal. Chiefs are going to Kansas. Now it seems like the momentum is fully back on the Missouri side.
Okay, so I'm going to try to read this. This is actually an article that I wrote. Let me just go ahead and try to read through all of it. Okay. House substitute for Senate. That's a word, but for Senate Bill 197 is under consideration in the Kansas legislature, where it remains in the Committee on Commerce, Labor, and Economic Development after being withdrawn from the calendar on March 21st. The bill attempts to extend the expiration date of the star bonds, which actually end up coming to an end on June 30th. But a star bond is a sales tax and revenue bond, is a financing tool in Kansas for large economic projects. And the bill actually amends a previous version of this bill. I mean, that's just how the legislature works. They always amend it and put new things in it. But the bill further explains the impact of star bonds by clarifying the definition of a major professional sports complex. Quote, a major project that involves a stadium with at least 30,000 seats and hosts National Football League or Major League Baseball contest would qualify for star bond financing. It also includes any related practice or training facilities for major professional sports franchise. This directly impacts the potential construction of a new Chiefs stadium in Kansas, allowing the project to tap into star bond funding to cover a lot of the construction cost. This is all coming from me. And guys, I got into the weeds on the bill. That is what the definition, like the legal term, or I guess the definition of star bonds and what it would mean.
Yeah. So again, really interesting. And it's almost like we get convoluting stories all the time, but I like that clarification about what this could potentially mean. My question for you though, Michael, is for Clark Hunt, right? Because it does seem like he wants that new stadium. And that's what Nate Taylor reported last week, that Clark Hunt wants a dome. I think he wants to host a Super Bowl. And I think also this is kind of a situation where he's trying to strike when the iron is hot. You had the best team in the NFL. Kansas City is viewed as a major football market, a football town. Like, if they were to get a dome here in the next 5 to 10 years, the Chiefs could host a Super Bowl. And that would be great, right? But how likely, I guess, do you think it is that Clark Hunt would essentially stiff arm the state of Missouri, almost like Stan Kroenke did with the St. Louis Rams, to go to Kansas and get that? And also, my tag-on question for that is, would you like to see that new stadium, or do you prefer that they remain in Arrowhead?
So here's the thing. I mean, I'm from Kansas. But at the same time, I'm not someone that's like, we need it in Kansas, we need it in Missouri. I don't care. Guess what? As long as they're in the region, as long as they're in Kansas or Missouri, they're the Kansas City Chiefs. I just want to say that first and foremost. I know that's kind of maybe a controversial take, but there's some people that are like, I'm going to die on the hill if it needs to be in Missouri, and I'm going to die on the hill if it needs to be in Kansas. I don't care. Guess what? Doesn't matter to me. I think that from a financial standpoint, the Kansas Star bonds make a lot of sense for Clark Hunt, because not only are you going to potentially get a dome stadium, which is going to bring in more revenue from like hosting Final Fours, concerts, year round, all that kind of stuff. The infrastructure at the Legends is significantly better than the area around the Truman Sports Complex. And again, it's so difficult to say, but kind of going back to what I said at the beginning of this video, I think the Chiefs have two choices. They're either staying at Arrowhead Stadium and just renovating the crap out of it, or they're going to Kansas. Like, I don't think there's we're going to build a new stadium in Missouri.
Yeah.
And I guess to kind of answer the question, I would like it if they stayed at Arrowhead Stadium, because I think there is some charm to it. But at the same time, I understand that from a financial standpoint, like this is a business. And if it's a business, Kansas makes a lot of sense. And one thing I'm going to throw out there, and it's so difficult to say, but I think from what I've also heard, that even though Missouri just had this, bill passed for the incentive plan, it might not still cover the entire cost of the stadium and also what Kansas has already put into plan.
No, it won't. Clark Hunt, and this also goes, even if he gets the star bonds from Kansas, Clark Hunt is still going to be on the hook for a lot of the cost. It's just that the state of Missouri is providing more money than they were initially in order to keep the Chiefs in Missouri. It's at least more of an option now than it was before. There's a couple more points I want to hit on, and then I do want to give my final opinion on what I would like to see, how I would like to see this unfold. But before we do that, I do want to give a shout out to the sponsors of this channel, Penalty Verdict. They're coming out with a new app next football season. Going to be super exciting. Chiefs fans, you're definitely going to have this. Let's check it out.
Whether you're sick of seeing your team constantly get screwed over by the refs, tired of hearing about how your team only wins because of the refs, or simply just desire fair play and accountability, then Penalty Verdict is the perfect app for you. Penalty Verdict is a new app that allows football fans to vote on penalty calls in real time on both NFL and college football games. With Penalty Verdict, you'll be able to engage with a community of football fans who desire accuracy and transparency in officiating. And not only does Penalty Verdict allow you to vote on and discuss penalties in real time, but you'll also have access to data and statistics on specific referees. And you can even see what your favorite team's win-loss record is with that referee heading the crew. You can use this information to make educated guesses on who's going to win each game, and earn even more XP, which can be used to place wagers and climb up leaderboards on Penalty Verdict. Unlock the next dimension of sports by engaging with real-time polling of referees, players, and teams. And lastly, view data-driven insights to have informed discussions about the games. While Penalty Verdict is still in the development phase, we would love to hear your guys' feedback on what features you want to see in the app for next football season. Invite your friends to join and share Penalty Verdict today, and follow Penalty Verdict on social media.
So yeah, guys, that is Penalty Verdict. Link is going to be in the description to get on the wait list. I also want to hear your feedback on what features you want to see for next football season. I'm going to be on there. I want to see you guys on there as well. Back to the video topic, Michael. A couple more points I want to hit on. So you were talking about the star bonds earlier, how maybe there's a little bit more clarity than initially thought about what the star bonds can be used for, such as a Chiefs football stadium. I think another concern, though, and why this isn't as cut and dry as people say it is because the star bonds are essentially deferred taxpayer money. They're saying we're giving you the money now, but it's not all there. It is still going to come from taxpayers. And I think the problem with sports stadiums that a lot of people have brought up is more often than not, stadiums, if they even do make revenue on their own, it takes a very long time for them to generate revenue. Now, granted, the area around the stadium in which, where it would be built, like you said, Michael, there's more stuff to do. There's more infrastructure. It's going to bring revenue to those things and local hotels and restaurants. It'll bring revenue to that. But the stadium itself, if it's funded by star bonds, I think there's some uncertainty there about whether or not, or when they would actually start generating revenue and making their money back on these deferred taxpayer dollars.
The thing is I don't think it's taxpayer. To my best knowledge from reading the bill, and this is in the article, it's what the Star Bond is a sales tax and revenue bond. So it's not taxpayer dollars, but rather the businesses around the Legends, Kansas, or in Wyandotte County. So
right, but they're making the money from people on sales tax. So the problem that I'm bringing up here, a potential hurdle, is that if you're not making revenue back on the stadium from deferred taxpayer money, someone's going to be on the hook, right? So I think that's the otherwise that I think if it was that simple, then we would have already seen them, basically say they're going to Kansas, but it's just not that simple. Now, I do want to give my opinion, and then we'll kind of get out of here, and then I have one more question for you. But I do want to give my opinion on what I would like to see happen here. And obviously, I'm a Missouri guy. You're a Kansas guy. Although I don't currently reside in the state of Missouri, so it's really not that significant to me at this very moment. But I like Arrowhead, and I think it does provide a unique home field advantage that I think is unfortunately becoming rare in the NFL. Because a lot of teams are moving into a dome or to an indoor stadium, and it's like you get that distinct climate advantage. And I also think like Arrowhead, the way it's currently constructed and how loud it is, like it's very hard for opposing teams to come into Arrowhead and win, especially in the postseason. It's just such a great home field advantage, and you'd be getting rid of that by moving into an indoor stadium. At the same time, I would love to see what a modern Arrowhead would look like, or a modern version of the Chiefs Stadium. And you can be sure as hell that if that were to happen, that I would be attending a Chiefs game to check out the new stadium. It's cool. Stadiums are cool. They're awesome architecture. But I would like to see them remain where they are now and renovate Arrowhead, not even just because of the fact that they're where they are already and I want to see them stay, but because they'd actually put a lot of money into Arrowhead just over the last few years, putting that Hall of Fame in there and new seats in the stadium, new video boards. Like they've done a lot of work to Arrowhead here in recent years. And I just think it would be such a waste to abandon what you've already made such a special place.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And like, I love Arrowhead because it's kind of got that, like, I don't want to say like Lambeau Field type of atmosphere.
No, I agree. No, I think definitely that's exactly what it is. Like Lambeau's a very similar place to where it's like, yeah, it's not cool and modern necessarily like an Allegiant Stadium, but you just get that feel, man. Like just that warm, welcoming football community, the tailgating going on outside the stadium, the way the Arrowhead is, the environment, you just can't beat it.
Yeah. And one thing I also want to say is that I guess I'll try to say it as politely as I possibly can. I'm not a big Mayor Lucas fan. I feel like he says what people want to hear, but he is not very transparent in all of this. I mean, I don't think he knows what's going on.
I think he's getting strung along by the Chiefs.
Absolutely. I think the Royals are kind of doing the same thing. Like he has no idea what anyone is doing. Yeah. And he's kind of
they're telling him one thing.
Yeah.
And then they turn around and they're talking to Kansas and they're like, yeah, we're coming,
But it just seems like he is saying he's very vocal, but it's not correct information, or at least it hasn't been up to this point. And I think that we're kind of waiting to see what happens with the Royals, because I don't think the Chiefs and the Royals want to share the complex anymore. And I think that if you can bulldoze Kaufman,
kind
of build something around Arrowhead,
kind
of changes the plan.
For sure.
But like if the Royals go to Overland Park, I mean, it's just like, what do we do? That's why this whole issue is just so.
The Royals really screwed it up. I think, they're really the reason we're having this conversation. Otherwise, that Jackson County vote probably passes and the door never really opens for them leaving. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. But before we do that, I do have one more question for you, Michael. Gun to your head today, where are the Chiefs going, or are they staying?
Gun to my head.
Yeah.
I think they'll stay. I think they'll stay at Arrowhead just because I do think that it's kind of tough for Clark Hunt to leave the stadium his father built.
Yeah.
And I think from that standpoint, yes. Now, if Clark Hunt ever relinquishes ownership, they're gone.
Yeah, it's also just going to depend on like what I think renovation plans look like. If there's a way for them to manufacture some sort of roof or dome over the stadium so that they can host a Super Bowl, I think that changes things. And I know years and years ago there was like a big plan to have like a rolling retractable roof that went over Kauffman and Arrowhead. I don't know what it would look like though, but there were plans for it at one point.
Crack is what they're doing.
It would have cost a lot of money, but no, we'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. I don't know. We'll see. I definitely want to hear from the viewers on this though, like in the comments, what you expect to happen here. This video has run a little bit longer than our videos as of recently, but I think this is a really interesting conversation right now, and we're definitely following this story closely. But what do you guys think? Do the Royal or the Chiefs? Do the Chiefs stay or do they go to the Kansas side? I don't really care what happens at the Royals at this point. I just think like they're in their own world right now. We'll see. But yeah, no, exciting times. So with all that being said, guys, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. You can check out my work on showmefootball.com. Follow me on Twitter at showmefb. And before we sign off, Michael, where can the people find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube at KC Sports Report. But really quickly, guys, if you guys liked this video, let us know down in the comment section, because I would love to do a live stream for like 2 hours and just get into everything, because like we just scratched the surface. There is so much more. I mean, the Royals are involved. The Chiefs are involved. If you guys want to see a live stream, let us know, because I'm so down. Yeah,
this would be really fun, I think. Then we could just go into our opinions and everything, all the moving parts. Yeah. Definitely. But no, all that being said, though, make sure you check down in the description below for all of Michael's stuff. It'll be down there as always. That's all we got for this one. We'll see you all in the next one. And as always, go Chiefs.